Good afternoon. Okay, we're going to start as we always do. Let me just. Right. What a day this has been. What a rare mood I'm in. Why, it's almost like being a. Oh, it's so beautiful. What a week. What a lovely unifying week. Thanks to women on Twitter, all and sundry. I have no idea. I'm just going to say this, right? I can take it. This has been going on a really long time. If you don't know the history of what's been happening, back in 2018, Women's Place, who I would argue work on behalf of Labour men, Women's Place put out something, this sort of, she's got Islamophobic racist cooties. We're not going to specify what we mean in as we think about women in Iran fighting to be liberated from the oppression of men, symbolic by hijabs. When we think about those women, it's quite despicable that the reason I'm apparently an Islamophobe is I don't think 7-year-olds should wear the hijab in this country. Actually, I think maybe it would be a good idea to start all of this, if somebody's got, can time it for me, I think we ought to have a minute's silence for all of the women who have lost their lives in Iran fighting for freedom. If we can start that now. Okay, thank you. It's reflecting on those women, and we know that in the 1970s, women in Iran were free to wear what the hell they wanted, and it's just bit by bit by bit that their liberty has totally been stolen. And the biggest tool that they've used is shame. And so I think we have to be really mindful when we allow anybody to shame us. I certainly will not be shamed by women who sit behind a keyboard and write nasty things on Twitter. It's not remotely interesting to me. Now, what happened in 2018 is they made these vague accusations, really powerful accusations, because actually the accusation of racism can cause the most damning indictment of anybody, irrespective of what evidence they may or may not have. And actually to refute the accusation of racism is really, really difficult. It doesn't really matter what you say. Once somebody said that you're a racist, there's pretty much nothing you can do about it that will convince anybody that you're not. So it's a really, really clever, nasty thing to do to anybody. And I'm just not going to play the game. I'm not going to play the game of trying to convince anybody that I'm not a racist, I'm not far right, I'm not a fascist, I'm not a white supremacist. I will not bow to their agenda. This is what we do here. It's a bloody lovely place. Every woman that came to Brighton, and you know, because you probably spoke to some of them, some women were genuinely afraid about coming to Brighton, about coming and saying words that they really felt that they needed to say, standing in a space where they'd hear words that they really felt they needed to hear. And not one of those women that's criticised us for having some random blokes video us, not one of those women has said anything about the speeches. I think that really shows what their agenda is. Now, I will just make it very clear to each and every one of you, I don't care who films us. I don't care who gets this message out. I don't think I'm going to be tainted by anyone or anything if they're filming what I say. We're not listening to them. We didn't invite any of those men to come and talk and tell us anything. Like, it's just so preposterous. The Heritage Foundation, the bastion of all that's evil in the whole entire world, the Heritage Foundation, in that room, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, a radical feminist, a lesbian, stood up at the Heritage Foundation and reduced stale, pale, white, old, right-wing Christian men, reduced them to tears and made them give her a standing ovation because they listened to her words. Now, if I go along with the idea that all right-wing Christians are deep, nasty, vile, Nazi homophobes, right? If we go along with that even, whose minds were changed that day by listening to her words? It wasn't the women on the panel. It was those men in the audience. And those men in the audience, that might be the first time that they ever saw a lesbian as bloody human. Or a radical feminist as having a decent point of view. I mean, even though it's nasty and it's inflammatory and horrible and untrue and dishonest and deceitful what these women are doing, it also makes no logical sense that you would basically try to shame someone on the basis of who else heard what they said. Right, I am not going to talk about the Venn diagram of people that know what biological sex is and people that might have cornflakes for breakfast in the morning, and also those people that might have slightly different views on immigration or God or any of the other things that seek to divide us. Because those men have become the most important thing that happened in Brighton. One absolute disgrace. Okay. Now, I decided to start using the hashtag uplifting women. I would ask you to do the same. So what that means is you just pick anyone, anything. I don't care if there's I don't care if it's one of the women that's taken great pleasure in saying something crap about us, or rather me, and I'm just going to rope you in with me. But I don't care if I am not on the opposing side of those women, because they're women. I'm on their side too. It doesn't, I'm so magnanimous. It doesn't matter to, look, some of those women have done incredible work for women. I don't think we need to discount it. I think the only way we combat their toxicity is actually with kindness and love, which totally goes against every single natural fibre of my being. But I do genuinely think that's what you do. You go back with kindness and love, you talk about the great things that they do, you make it impossible for them to then continue to attack you. That's the only way we can do it. It's the same with handmaidens on the TRA side. The only thing we can keep doing to those women is keep telling them, we are here for your rights. We are definitely here for your rights. There will come a time when you understand what they might be and what you nearly gave up. Okay, so this is how we work at Speaker's Corner. There are no hierarchies. You don't have to have diamantes. You come and speak. You probably don't have to keep it as short as we needed in Brighton. You say what you like. Your words, your responsibility. It's entirely up to you. People may or may not agree with you, and do you know what? You're still allowed to say it. Because aside from this child here, I think we're all adults, and it's really weird because we can stop being the thing that has pushed this ideology so successfully forward, which is listening to other people's point of view, which is thinking that you can cope if somebody says something we don't agree with. No fear, no shame. Those are the two big things that stop any of us doing anything at any point. fear and shame. You don't need it here because we're all big enough, old enough, ugly enough and wrinkly enough to actually listen and put up with it. So if you'd like to speak, you just raise your hand, you get this microphone, don't walk off with it. Oh, can I just say also, TRAs have spoken in Manchester. We allowed a woman to speak in Manchester because any woman is allowed to speak. That's how it works here. Any woman is allowed to speak. You can come and say silly things and people will disagree with you. Okay. Oh, I've clipped your hair.
That's all right. It's getting through.
Thank you.
Well, I wasn't going to speak today, but it's primarily something that came up in the news this morning. A poor sod teacher that lost his job for refusing to use a young girl's preferred pronouns and her new male identity in school without parental consent. So he got fired and he's now suing them, quite rightfully. But what was quite interesting in this newspaper report that I read was the wording from the school guidance, which said something along they were maintaining confidentiality and only tell others about their trans status with their permission. Now that wording is almost exactly the same as the wording in the trans policy of my daughter's school. What these schools do is they buy in these policies. And these policies, they downplay blockers, they downplay binders, they say things like, a girl might need extra rest in sports with her binder. She can't bloody breathe. Don't tell the parents that they're not on board, etc., etc. What I'd like people to do is to, if you've got secondary school age children, get in contact with your school and ask to see their policy. Read it, it might be quite eye-opening. My eyes were certainly opened. And write back and tell them. Link Suella Braverman's speech, which basically says you're liable, you're acting against the law. Sections of the Cass report where they say that social transitioning is not a neutral act, which it isn't. Write to your school, write to them. And then, even if they do nothing, if anything happens, they can't pretend they don't know. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm so crazy.
Ah, raging TRA. Next. Yes. You don't have to say who you are or where you come from, but you can if you want. Where can I sort of clip you like that? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Ruby. I've been waiting 20 years to do this. I don't think I can get through it without crying, so bear with me. But this peasant upstart here has given me the chance to do it, and I'm eternally grateful. I met about more than 20 years ago, I went to see an Indian film and got chatting to 3 Bangladeshi women who were there. We talked about the film, they explained a lot of stuff. They invited us to their home, we had a fantastic meal. Then we invited them back and we cooked what we thought was a fantastic meal, but one of them criticised everything we provided, but we took that on the chin because...
Are you able to speak louder a little bit?
I'm trying, okay. Yeah, okay. Anyway, just as they were leaving, one of them said, I'd like you to read my poem. And to be honest, my heart sunk because I'm not a poetry person. And usually if somebody says that, I think, oh Christ, you know, what am I going to say? But I sort of skimmed it quickly and it bowled me over, and then she left. I then went through a period of turbulence in my own life and I moved house, and I hate myself because I lost all their contact details, but I've kept the poem all this time. And I've been longing for other women to hear it. Remember, this is a Bangladeshi woman. It's a bit long, I'm sorry, but I think you'll see. Do you believe in rebirth? Of course not. But there are many who do. So if I was a good girl, chances are I would be born a he and not a she again. You don't see the difference? But I know what it would mean for me, for I would be very brainy. I'd be top in maths, physics, and maybe chemistry. I would play football and hockey, wander about in fields and parks, lie on the grass with my pals, laughing and chatting, or gazing at the stars. All eyes would follow me, a man shaping his destiny. My father wouldn't be worrying for me. Guess why? I wouldn't need to be guarded and protected from servants, relations, or family friends, not to speak of strangers prowling in the streets. I'd be sorry for my sister, though, and think, what a pity. She can't go out like me. And what a waste to be raised only to be given away with a fat dowry. They say it's Dad's sacred duty. But thank God, I wouldn't need to kill myself thinking of that dreadful night in a strange house with people you have never met and a strange man in your bed. In fact, it would be the other way round. I would walk into the bride's room with my blood on fire, determined to prove my manhood in the most crucial hour. And when accomplished, I would sigh with relief for having tamed the wild cat on the very first night. Watching with satisfaction the blood-stained sheet, satisfaction for them all waiting for the breaking news. In the fairy tales, they live happily ever after. But it was the beginning of my sleepwalking through the magic window into strange places in strange times, until I was ready to awake. And then I knew you don't have to be reborn to be a he, if only you can smash the charmed ring that marks your boundary to be. And then the most wonderful thing happens. A person emerges out from the she to take over and shape your destiny. And that's what has been happening all around me. And wherever the wind is blowing, so let it be. And I think that's a Muslim Bangladeshi woman managed to do it without crying. And she speaks now, those last few lines, I think, are for all the women fighting religious and cultural oppression in Iran and Afghanistan and other countries. Their wind is blowing. They will win, yes. And so will we. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Julia next, and then...
I've got quite a lot to say, I'll try. I heard there's no time limit, so what time does it get dark? I have got a few things I want to say, but before I say anything, I do want to just observe that I have never on any of these occasions heard anything remotely resembling any sort of racist sentiment or anti-migrant sentiment or anything even remotely resembling that. And in fact, the very opposite. All I've heard is, just as we've just heard now with that absolutely wonderful poem and speech, women uplifting other women wherever we come from and whatever situations we find ourselves in. That's all I've heard. And in fact, the very opposite of any sort of racist sentiment. When some of us, I'm sure probably this has happened to more than one group. Certainly when I was with my local group of women, and we had a stall in our local area, and we had a lot of support, and then a particular man came over and started spouting all this anti-racist, anti-migrant rhetoric, and we shot him down straight away. We did not give him the time of day. We sent him packing, and I'm sure any one of us would do that. So those who in their, I'm sure, very robustly built, non-unbreakable glass houses, who are lobbing glass houses that are lobbing boulders at us. You know, just think about what you're accusing and who you're condemning, because I think often you're actually shouting at voices in your own head rather than reality of what goes on at any of these events. Anyway, it's by way of a preamble. Anyway, so last week there was a lot of us. I was among a fantastic group, a really awe-inspiring group of extraordinarily courageous women who stood up and gave testimonies of their experiences of sexism and misogyny, specifically at the in terms of what's going on with transgender and gender identity ideology, and very often they continue to speak, even though it was a real struggle to hear them because of the absolute barrage of aggression and hatred, and sometimes actual smoke bombs that were being lobbed at us, and sirens that were being set off that the police did nothing to stop. It was absolutely disgusting, and it was so moving to hear women continue to speak, even being subjected to this level of absolute really disgusting, and for me, quite terrifying anti-woman hatred. It was really impressive and awe-inspiring and absolutely wonderful to be with everyone. And so, of course, I'm sure, like the rest of us who were there, I'm not a regular visitor of social media these days. I can't imagine why that might be, but I expected to see some sort of solidarity from those women who call themselves feminists. I expected to see some sort of solidarity with all the courageous women who spoke there and had been on the receiving end of this really disgusting and terrifying verbal and sometimes quite physical in terms of the smoke bombs and these assaults. But instead, what did we bloody on the receiving end of an assault from a flag now, but instead it started, didn't it? Straight away it started that apparently there was a woman there who I seriously doubt that any of us, I'd certainly never come across her before. I don't even want to talk about her as an individual, but apparently there was a woman there who has been known to express anti-immigrant views, who's been known to express anti-single mother views, something like that. And then from then on, it just went on with all these accusations, and the level of basically attack on us, and attack particularly obviously on Kellie-Jay, the like of which, I mean, really, how can you sit there on your device and actually put in the words, what was it, pound shop Marine Le Pen, but we know they can, because that's certainly far from the first time, all of these disgusting things. And now apparently there's a whole discussion about the nature of pound shops, and rather than their hideous name and something else, apart from never hearing any racist sentiment here. On the contrary, the other thing that I've never heard is the kind of disgusting misogynist name calling that I've seen coming from those women, and I've never seen any of them call it out or condemn it from each other, whether it's comparing Kellie-Jay to dog excrement, I don't even want to say, all these horrible things. I can't even remember, there's so many of them now, and all the usual lies, taking money from the Heritage Foundation. This is a thing, because then they all join in and say how terrible it is, and it's a confection of their own imagination, because no one has taken money from there. It's a complete lie. No one took money, but they've spread that lie, and then they attack us for the lies that they tell. So anyway, all of that. Now, I missed the beginning bit, but I hear that we're supposed to be lifting up other women. So dutifully, obviously, I will do that. So I would just like to thank all of those commentators on social media who have given us the benefit of their moral instruction this week.
Hashtag gratitude, hashtag blessed, hashtag thank you. I would like to thank them because apparently I found out quite a few things this week. One of the things that I found out is that apparently one of the women who gave her testimony along with everybody else, and from what I can see, it was absolutely fair enough about being proud to be a TERF, something like that. Apparently, this woman is a commentator on GB News. GB News, again, I can't say I'm a huge visitor to that particular channel. I understand it to be a right-leaning free speech channel. That's how I've seen it described. And it gives a platform to women expressing those kinds of views. So I would like to thank all of those who were so quick to condemn us for that woman being amongst us, because of course none of them would dream of appearing on GB News. None of them would ever. I don't know, does GB News pay? Does it pay? Probably doesn't, does it? I don't know.
Why not pay them?
I don't know, but, of course none of them. I've never come across anyone like such as Jane Claire Jones, Julie Bindel, Jean Hatchett, Angela Wilde. I'm sure that they have absolute integrity when they slam us because the ground they walk on, roses spring up from behind it in terms of their moral, behind their footsteps, in terms of their moral integrity. Now, apparently, some of these comments, I understand that this particular young woman who's a commentator on GB News has made in the past are anti-migrant and anti-single mothers, apparently so. So again, of course, none of our detractors would dream of giving photo opportunities or interviews, or still less writing for and taking money from newspapers that write headlines such as "The Swarm in Our Streets" about migrants. And even that very same week that we had our event in Brighton, the Daily Mail ran a headline saying, "Why don't we put migrants on a bus and send them to where the Refugees Welcome Brigade live?" That was the same week. That was 3 days before our event in Brighton. So I'm sure I will never see any of these women who had what looked like a very nice lunch with a famous author ever being featured again in the Daily Mail, ever allowing their photographers to come and take photos of their rather exclusive events. And I'm sure they certainly won't be writing for such a rag that not only gives this kind of pretty vile anti-migrant rhetoric, but also platforms and gives headlines about research that talks about how the children of single mothers are more likely to be delinquent than those of with two-parent household. So I'm sure they will shun that, and they certainly would not like to touch the dirty money of the Daily Mail in future. There's been other commentators, maybe haven't necessarily been on GB News or written for the Daily Mail, who were also very, very quick to condemn an open air event like this at which any woman is invited to come and speak. I mean, what an abomination. Whose terrible idea was that? But there are women associated with a particular group that have had a number of events in venues. Now, I understand when you have an event in a venue, I've organised some myself, generally speaking, you have to pay whoever owns that venue or runs that venue for the privilege of having your event there. Now, I'm sure all of these, sorry, I know I'm really going on, but anyway, you can just cut, chop, edit. What was I saying? I'm sure all of those women who are now so eager to condemn us, I'm sure they would all agree that anti-woman sentiment is as bad as racist sentiment. I'm sure they would agree that. I'm sure they would agree that the erasure of women and the persecution of women as a class, as a group, is as every bit as bad as the persecution and erasure of any other group. So I'm just calling to mind then the fact that, just to name two venues, Women's Place UK hosted an event at the Central London Baptist Church. It was one that I went to a few years ago. The Central London Baptist Church absolutely endorses, pushes a pro-gender identity, pro-transgender line in talking about how welcome transgender and non-binary people are. So that venue, which presumably they gave money to, is actually pushing a line that is the very opposite of what I think we're about. As does the Quaker movement, I believe, also pushes a similar line. And while they put it in these very touchy-feely terms, we know obviously that what they're doing is erasing women and promoting the kinds of things that result in men in women's prisons, for example, and men in women's sports, etc. So I'm sure that Women's Place UK will be very quick to distance themselves from both of these organisations, and will never host an event in any venue again that has such a line as that. I look forward to all the rending of the shirts and the chest, self-flagellation and hashtag not in my own. Anyway, back to the uplifting, because again, thank you in advance for all of your self-denunciations. I did also notice Helen Lewis putting the boot in, because apparently, I don't know, I think she felt rather triggered when Posey with me, following on, I didn't even know who Sarah McBride was at the time, I think, that we challenged this man, who's obviously such a vulnerable and fragile creature that he's actually now a senator in the United States of America, that apparently we were haranguing a trans woman. What made me laugh, she didn't even, how sometimes they take away the gap, they put trans woman because that's different, but she didn't even do that. She called him a trans woman. So there you go, Helen, that's your politics. If you're so willing to call a man a woman, you are absolutely part of the problem. And not only were we absolutely right to go and challenge him after he'd been making a video with one of the Kennedys, not only because he'd been making a video to promote the so-called, another nice euphemism, the transitioning of children. That's what he was there to do. So we were not only right to do that, but as I think Posey said, we should have done more. We should have sat down and refused to go and been carted off and Anyway, I'm just going to say, just to finish, something I've been thinking about. Sometimes, this sort of comparisons come to your mind. I remember a long time ago, studying the Reformation in history, and that has really been coming back. The Mrs. Elder's history notes and textbook from whenever it was, I can't even think now, probably late 70s, early 80s. That's been coming back to me, because what I've been thinking is, those of you who can remember your history lessons, that what brought about the Reformation was the control and elitism of the Catholic Church, wasn't it? It was the fact that the Catholic Church said, you can only access salvation, you can only get up there, and they really told people that you'd burn in hell otherwise. You can only get up there through us, through our archbishops, through our priests, through our cardinals, and ultimately through the Pope. You can only get up there through us. And we are going to say our masses in Latin so you can't understand it. And basically all of you plebs are going to be under our control, because otherwise you're going to burn in hell. Well, for some reason, this structure of an elite hierarchy that is claiming that the only way to access some sort of feminist consciousness or liberation is through them, just put me in mind of that a little tiny bit. And what I want to say, they can't control us. They can't stop this happening. They cannot control us. And all of us, we are responsible and accountable only for our own actions, And what we do here, I find probably the nearest thing to salvation that I've experienced in a long time. So well done, all of us. Oh, sorry.
That's all right, thank you. Thank you. Let me liberate you
Sorry.
from that. Yes, Kate. Come. Prepare yourselves. This is going to be magnificent, I'm sure.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much, Kellie-Jay. I always call her Posy, for being so brave and so fucking magnificent. Julia's always full of joy, isn't she? She's easy to provoke to joy, and joy is always what she brings. I tend to bring death and fear and destruction. And I'm absolutely furious, right? Last time I spoke on one of these, I was furious. This time I'm more furious. And yeah, I know a good song about fury, which I might sing at the end. I'm going to talk, I'll try and be brief, about an article written by Jane Edgerton, which keeps popping up, right, in different locations. And I want to talk you through it a wee bit, right? Just a wee bit. My God, it goes on and on. It's called Women and the Religious Right. And before I get started on it, I should say that my association with Jane goes way back to the late 70s, and I do trust that she is women-centred and committed to women's liberation. And you know, we don't have any animosity, particularly when we meet. So bear that in mind. Now, well, we don't. So this article about women and the religious right appeared in the United States, appeared in issue 5 of the Radical Notion. Now I couldn't get access to it in the Radical Notion, which could be a lot more bloody radical actually if it tried, because you need to pay. But luckily for me, Women's Place UK have reprinted it, and I managed to get hold of a copy. So she starts off with an introduction where she talks about various organisations in the American right. She talks about the Family Policy Alliance, who produced a gender resource guide. She talks about the Heritage Foundation, which is an influential right-wing think tank. She talks about, there's another 2 or 3 or 4 of them, Fourth Wave Now, a community of people who question the medicalisation of gender atypical youth. She talks about a whole bunch of them, and she goes on and on and on about them. Paragraph after paragraph about these right-wing Christian fundamentalists. And then she mentions Beth Graham's, sorry, that woman shares my surname, right? That's my stepfather's surname. My proper surname is Ryan, right? And I had an uncle buried with full military honours, a great uncle for fighting the black and tans, by the way, right? Which my mother used to remind me of every time I misbehaved. She was good like that, my mum, you know, I can't. Anyway, Beth Graham says, sheep in wolf clothing. A sheep in wolf's clothing. Now, some of you may know that there's an organisation in America called the Women's Liberation Front, and the acronym is WOLF. And there are some pretty fabulous women there who are providing what seems to me they're pretty much the only resistance, radical feminist resistance, yeah. So there's shit. Anyway, so this woman goes on about a chronology of events, which began, she says, with Wolf, quote, taking a £15,000 donation from the ADF. So that's our first issue, right? When you have a single issue campaign, and many of us have participated in them and contributed to them, I know I have, do you question who gives the money? Do you?
No.
If you have an anonymous donor, or even a donor in this case who's prepared to own up to it, do you say, oh no, I'm not going to take your money because it's got the Queen's head on it, or because it's got, you know, it's from a different country, or because you're, I don't know, Quaker or whatever the hell it is, do you? I can't hear you. Now, I mean, that is an issue for you to sort out for yourself. As far as I'm concerned, women do not have money. We have grassroots funded these various defences and these various campaigns, like Alison Bailey's, for instance, and we've done magnificently, right? But if the odd famous author who lives in Edinburgh, right, decides to dump us a massive contribution, we're grateful, right? And I think that there's absolutely no reason why we should not take a £15,000 donation from any right-wing or Christian or Muslim or otherwise orthodox organisation in order to try to resist the change in the law in the United States, right? That's what I think. I'm quite clear about it. She doesn't say what she thinks, right? So a lot of these accusations, these damning accusations, are done through innuendo. Is it innuendo? They're done through, you know, subtle kind of wink, wink, nudge, whatever the posh word for that is, right? Innuendo, thank you, right? And that's what's going on. Now the next thing, the next paragraph, get this, is called The Trump Connection. And she goes on about the Christian right. Watch this, I'm scrolling, right, scrolling, the CNP backed Trump's candidacy, right, federal judicial nomination, I'm scrolling, this is all about the right-wing, fundamentalist Christian, neo-fascist Americans. And it's a bloody good thing that they're not Muslim, isn't it? Because if she was going on about the right-wing Muslim fundamentalists, right, she'd be in trouble with her brothers and sisters on the left, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Right. But luckily for her, they are supposedly Christianese. I haven't got a problem with Jesus of Nazareth. I'm absolutely clear he would have been on our side. I don't know what you guys think. I'm just saying that, right? Right. I only pray when I'm desperate, but I do get desperate. And I'm still scrolling, I'm sorry, Posey. Wasting your time. The extent to which Wyrich's strategic advice is echoed by Meg Gilganon, a member of the Hands Across the Aisle Coalition. Now, the Hands Across the Aisle Coalition is the American version of, you know, a broad-based, non-party coalition. They have an aisle or something in their Congress. Is it Congress? I don't know. They have an aisle. The left sit on one side, the right sit on the other. They're all right, aren't they? But I mean, anyway, blah, blah, blah. She's not a member of Wolf or anything. She's just one of the women that's actually talking to the radical feminists. I'm scrolling. Most of this article is about the right wing being right wing. Right? You know, quote, homosexual activists work to normalise sex with boys. Right? They're right wing. They don't like gays, they don't like lesbians, and they want women, you know, totally controlled and without divorce and without access to any sort of free way of life. They're anti-feminist, right? Is there anybody here who doesn't understand that? I'm sorry, I'm a teacher, but now I'm really angry, right? Because scrolling. Now, here she goes. Finally.
I'm just going to take this off because people can't hear you and I want them to be able to hear you on the thing. Sorry.
Okay, can you hear me? It's really important, right? Quote, this is where she starts speaking. We're deep into this bloody article. We may think we're engaged on a single issue basis with these groups, especially when they are appropriately secular, or when they appropriate, beg your pardon, secular feminist language, but we are also in their crosshairs, right? The fact that they've shifted their attention for the moment should fool nobody. Are we fooled? I can't hear you. No! We're not fooled, Jane. We know they're right wing. We know they're racist. We know they're homophobic. We know they hate us. What we're concerned with is, are you? Do you? Right? That's what we're concerned with. Now, what she's arguing with is whether or not we can agree with them on a single issue, okay? That I leave for you to work out, because she then talks about that. She's back to their ideology again, telling us all about their biological determinism, telling us all about their compulsory heterosexuality. Do we know that? Yeah. Thank you, I can't hear you. Yeah. Thank you, we know that, Jane. Right? We know that. And then there's like, why do we care we're British? Well, obviously, we're internationalists because we're feminists. Can I hear a yes? Yes! Okay, I'm going to break with this now. And I want to say this, right? it's all very well laughing, right? You know how some of our wonderful women, Helen Steele by name and Steele by nature, right? You know how they were duped by a police undercover operation which was funded and went on for many years and is commonly called spy cops? Do you know about that? Okay, I'm going to ask you something. If you were in the porn industry, right, based in the United States, raking in, as I said last time I spoke, more money than the fast food industry, raking in more money than the automobile industry, right? Would you invest a little bit of money in placing and planting undercover operators to fuck up the feminist resistance to porn and prostitution?
Yes.
Would you?
Yes.
Would you embed people to deliberately mold and twist and manufacture and disrupt a coordinated feminist alliance? Would you? And do you think it's more likely you would do that in the US or here? I think it's more likely they'd do it here. They've probably tried to do it here, but we, thanks in no small part to good old Posey Parker, right, we have been able to resist that and build a coalition. And that is partly because of our tremendous history here of trade union organisation, right, and working together on other single issue campaigns in the past. You ready? So I am accusing these people, right, of collaboration. I am accusing them of collaborating with the sex work, so-called sex work industry and the pornographic industry in the United States. The gloves are off! We are not putting up! And I don't think it's fucking funny, right? It's gone well beyond a joke. We have the first bit of success that we've had for years in Brighton, where we actually outnumbered them, and we were, yes, and we were actually able to get some measure of police protection, right? And I actually turned a young bloke in that thing, actually. Anyway, I shouldn't really mention that, but anyway, you know, that was progress, that was success. And after everything we've been through, what do? They try and pull the rug out from under us, right? And they try to, you know, attack on a personal level yet again the integrity, right, and the courage, right, and the determination of every woman and some of the guys here as well, standing up for women's rights, standing up for sex-based rights, standing up for gays and lesbians and bisexuals. Right, I'm sorry, Posey, just 2 more minutes, I've got to check. God, it goes on and on. It's on and on. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Then she has a go. She says, it's not our circus until we recall that it was made into our circus by Julia Long, Venice Allen and Kellie-Jay, right? Then they went to the US as part of a transatlantic. Wait, I joined WRF before they went to the US, right? Just so you know, right? Anyway, and they just kind of, again, nothing's really alleged, right? It's all just, oh, they went to America, so therefore what? They must be Christian right-wing fundamentalists? Or, Julia, you've been keeping this from me. Okay, almost there, right? And then they have a go about the business where you went in and said to that guy, what the hell are you doing? That senator, the trans guy. Blah, 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 on and on and on. Then she says they went to another event, co-hosted by the Heritage Foundation and the FPA, quote, Summit on Protecting Children from Sexualization.
What a shame.
Now, this is something for you to decide. It's your political analysis. Do you think radical feminists should be at a summit on protecting children from sexualization? Right? Or do you think, like in Scotland at the moment, radical feminist analysis should be completely excluded from any discussion about children and trans and the promotion of sexualization of children in schools? right? Next thing, it also included people from the American College of Pediatrics. They went into the heart of the beast, wolf this is, bless them, and they did their best, as so many of us do in various situations where we're the only people who are speaking out to try and defend us and the kids from all this shit, right? On and on and on, on and on and on, all about them. Now, oh fuck, there's one more thing which was about the law. Oh no, I think we might be at the end. No, we're not at the end. The Christian right have a number of transgender focused bills. The majority of them model language provided by ADF, the Christian right. Why is that? Probably because Wolf is very small, probably because it's unfunded, and no doubt because they get all this shit from you, Jay Edgerton, right? Now look, as with the trans issue, I have changed my mind, right? I've been a lesbian since I was a teenager, and I used to see the trans out, and I never particularly always thought of them as gay men, right? And some of the butch dykes, so-called butch dykes, would call themselves Joe and Bob and stuff like that, and whatever. They were like, we called them bar dykes. They weren't, my people were radical feminists, right? More so even than radical feminist lesbians, but you know, that's who I identified with. What was I going to say? Shit. What I was going to say, oh, I've lost it. Come on. What was I going to say? Yeah, I changed my mind. Right. Now, you know, I changed my mind about this because I'm quite traumatized. I have, it's resolved now, but a few years ago it was still unresolved. I have a bit of unresolved trauma from when I was a teenager, and some of the Baptists told me that I had the Antichrist in me. Right, they did. All that shit about, you know, you're queer, you're perverted, you're abnormal, you're unnatural, I fear, Kate, that you've got the Antichrist in you, and shit like that. So when I desperately needed, as I do today, a spiritual way of life and a spiritual path, that was completely denied me by the Christians in Edinburgh at that time. And it's bad, you know. So I had to face that and accept that. Actually, I need to work with these people. And what did it for me was the argument that was put to me, which is that in order to pass anti-prostitution laws, in order to promote the Nordic model, right, and to abolish prostitution, we needed to work with everybody who was going to work with us. And a lot of those people in France, where it's been passed, in Ireland, where it's been passed, a lot of that is due to support and money and resources given by the church, the Catholic Church actually. Right? I and other radical feminists do not lend them any fucking credibility, right? I don't. And neither do we lend the right-wing Christian fundamentalists in America any credibility, right? Who lends them credibility, strangely enough, is this bullshit, right? Because it says that radical feminists are not enough of a thorn, enough of a stone in their heel, enough of a problem for them to actually bring about change, right? Right, I think that's probably it. Thank you. Thank you.
Just going to do a bit of a sound checky thing because apparently it's not so great. Yes, I will come to all of you. Just give me one moment. Is it okay? It's all right now? All right, good. I just want to pick up on the last two speakers very quickly, because Women's Place said what they said about me back in 2018, and it really did. I think it's the most hurtful thing when they did that had ever happened till that point, and then Jean Hatchett just said, "Hold my beer," and then she did something quite terrible. And I actually think Women's Place did it strategically. I think Jean Hatchett was just very hurt about something else, and I think it was quite personal for her. And so I don't normally name these people, but I think it's quite a good time too. But what happened is all the women, and Kathleen Stock has been so gracious in changing her mind. But when we spoke to, Julia and I, in a corridor, see this shiny man with very good hair on camera, and I'm like, that's Sarah McBride, he's part of the HRC. One of their first campaigns was to get a man who'd beaten his wife so badly she nearly was decapitated when he killed her, and then he went home and he sat down at a table and he ate with his son as if nothing had happened. And Sarah McBride's first HRC campaign was to get that man into a women's prison, and yet we were criticised for asking him, why do you hate lesbians, is basically what we said. And Women's Place and all of those women, which it just doesn't make any sense, basically said we were wrong for doing it, which means that they genuinely see that nasty, pernicious, very powerful man as a vulnerable woman. That's the only thing that makes any sense. It's the same reason why they shared the crowdfunder for one man to have his penis inverted for so-called sex reassignment surgery. It's why they call Christina Harrison's sister or Miranda or whatever other blokes who, not some of them that are very, very celebrated, have gaslit their wife and kids. How on earth can I be so... Oh, I've just got to say this as well. I am basically just a magic human, because I am both totally irrelevant and the most insignificant thing that came to getting Trump elected. I am both things at the same time. I am nothing and I am something. That's me. So I just think, how can I be the person that is supposed to shoulder the shame that these women and the scorn that these women pour, when actually they are celebrating so many men who are absolutely instrumental? I think, right, somebody like some of the TRAs on Twitter, right, we can all name them, I don't want to, you know who they are. They are not as effective at all in persuading any one of you than these other women who are gaslighting you. These men, we can see that they're monsters. These women come as apparently your allies and your saviours, and at the same time they will take you and they will shift your position, and they will make every woman in those meetings give a round of applause to Debbie Hayton, give a round of applause to absolute nonsense, because actually you know that them, more than anyone, will shame you if you don't 100% agree with the true trans, be kind to men's narrative that they are pushing. And I think they're actually more dangerous than any TRA, because they come as your friends. Now, I don't want to keep doing the, what is it, Judea's People's Front and the People's Front of Judea, because it really does feel like that. But I think if we want to get over the finish line, you, and only you, have to be accountable for what you're prepared to do and what you're prepared to say and who you're prepared to talk to. I've made it very, very clear. I will talk to anybody about this. I will stand beside anybody when it comes to this, because I actually think the mutilation of children's bodies is above and beyond anything else. So, you've waited a year, come on. I'm going to hold it down a bit because we've been having a bit of an issue with the sound.
Okay. Hello everybody. Hope you can all hear me. Well, the last time I spoke here at Reformers Tree was last Halloween, which is, it's quite a long time ago. I did speak at Bristol, but I'm sorry I couldn't make it to Brighton, but I watched you all on YouTube with great admiration. So some of you know my story, some of you might not. I've been cancelled by the left in the UK. I was a political cartoonist for the Morning Star. I was with them for 5 years. When the TUC held a special meeting ordering the Morning Star to cancel me or face defunding, which was the first time this had happened in their 70-year history, Women's Place UK said, how high should we jump to support this cancellation? So I had no network of support, unlike some of these academic women. I didn't have a load of journalists on my side. I didn't have a load of academic friends who could stick up for me. I had to go to the only thing that was in existence, which had just started, which was the Free Speech Union. I won't hear anything said about their right wing, their this, their that. Before me, they supported Selina Todd. They've been supporting women who've been facing this no platforming right from when they were instigated. So they've just been cancelled by PayPal because the CEO of PayPal is actively opposing legislation in the US protecting women and children. That's the reason they've been cancelled by PayPal, and loads of other people like Kellie-Jay have also been cancelled by PayPal, not allowed to use PayPal. So I hope a lot of you, I did have a PayPal account until last week. When this happened, I thought, no, I'm not using it anymore. Even if you don't have any money in your PayPal account, they reach into your bank account to make the transactions, take it directly out of your bank account. So why use them as the middleman anyway? Why give them the percentage? So I hope what's happened with PayPal and the Free Speech Union will inspire some of you. Because I was on my own, I had to publish my own book in 2020, and I've got a signed copy of my book here. I've bought it before. I hope nobody minds if I give it to Dr. M because it's her birthday. So that's my book. It's called 2020, the year we were all cancelled, because it obviously refers to the pandemic as well. It was the only book written by a TERF that supports Kellie-Jay, that supports Magdalene Burns. All these things you'll find in it. J.K. Rowling cartoon supporting her right on the front page. It's the only book in the world published like that. Still on Amazon. I think they're selling it for under £10 at the moment. So feel free to get it for your friends. I watched you all in Brighton. I've done a special cartoon commemorating the fascist baby incident. Which it's on my Getter account, on my Spinster account, and on my website radicalcartoons.com. So I hope just support everybody who came and spoke at Brighton. Lovely to see you all again.
Where's Jules? Jules.
Thank you.
I hope it's great.
Okay. Where do I stand? Am I here? Hello. So I was in Brighton. I actually met the fascist baby. It was really cute. But what I wanted to say is we have all this stuff and people saying, oh, don't listen to Posey, and actually that's made me listen to Posey's videos more. And I noticed that in the chats on the side, there were lots of people saying to Posey, oh, we want merch with your face on it. Why don't you bring out some stickers that say Posey Parker's a legend? And Posey's going, well, I think she actually said, that would be a bit narcissistic even for me. So I have made Posey a bag. I'm not selling these bags and I'm not making them for anybody else. So this isn't a promotion. But I have made Posey a bag, which I would like to give her. Can you come here? So this is a one-off. I'm not selling them. I've made it for you because you deserve a Posey Parker is a legend bag.
Oh, thank you.
And I've also got lots of Parker is a legend stickers, which again aren't being sold, but I'm going to come around and give them out to anybody who would like them, because Posey Parker is a legend. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. It's very kind.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Hang on. Yes. You.
Thank you.
Hello everybody. I only got involved in stuff really in May of this year when I went on Twitter, because I wasn't really a social person on the internet. A year before, a friend of mine had started sending me through messages, information online, sent through. She's an NHS manager, and I was thinking, what's she going on about this? And I started reading it, and I just couldn't believe what I was reading. I went down this rabbit hole, and the things that I've read about, which we don't hear about on mainstream media, and we talked about GB News before, but that's the only place that really has open debate about this issue. So I read so much. I've read the trans book, other books, some of the horrendous things, and my own uncle actually transitioned. So the things I was reading, it sort of hit home to me. So on Twitter, I'm actually Henrietta, and last Tuesday I asked Posey if she would make this political, and I think we do need to make this political, because I am a Labour long-term voter, and I am so angry and disappointed with the Labour Party. When I hear women MPs, Labour MPs, saying that women can have a penis, I'm sorry. No. What happened to the great women of Labour, like Barbara Castle and people like her, because I'm old enough to remember these people, what happened to these women with true guts? And the Green Party, I can't vote anywhere else. I can't vote for the Green Party, I can't vote for the Liberals, and I voted for them locally. I don't want to vote Conservative, because I'm originally from Liverpool. Can't do that, right? So what are we going to do? So we need to stand up. We need to stand up. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. When you look at Ireland, when they brought in self-ID on the back of gay marriage, right at the end, absolutely no debate whatsoever. Not just there, Norway. Any other countries have done it as well? Australia, have they done it? No. No? Who else has done it? Malta. Scotland have got it. Malta. Finland. Iceland. This is an autogynephile conspiracy with drug companies, and it is affecting our young gay children and heterosexual children, and we have to call it out. I brought my children here today, my two daughters, and luckily they're old enough at 14 and 16 to have not got stuck into like the internet, social media type thing. I urge you, if you have children or grandchildren, godchildren, whatever, please start monitoring what they're watching on their mobile phones, who they are talking to, because you might as well get a sign outside your house that says any paedophile, any weirdo, just go upstairs, bedroom's on the right. That's it, right? You really need to watch who they're talking to, because this is insidious, and it's absolutely disgraceful that this is being taught in schools. Talking about Safe School Alliance, I've been talking about how things like recommending butt gloves for anal fisting to young people in school. Come on, I'm not anti-gay at all, but come on, please. These are things that kids should be learning from their parents or from groups, not in the classroom. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for speaking. Thank you. Who did I see? Yes, in blue. Another fascist garment.
Oh, thank you. Oops, stand here. Right. Hello everyone. Lovely to be here. I think I came to my first one about 2-3 years ago. I can't remember because COVID ate my brain, so the time just went. I'm going to wait for that truck to pass.
Move that truck.
There we go. When I first came here, I hadn't done a single thing. I hadn't taken any action whatsoever. I'd just been absorbing information and looking, and I did sort of reinvigorate my Twitter, but I hadn't done anything. And so I'm pleased to say in the last few years I've done quite a bit. Now I have to be a little bit circumspect because we all do, so I'll just say that I work for a large organization. Now, I have been introduced to like-minded people in my large organization, and we have started having conversations, and they have been a little bit secret squirrel conversations because you know you've got to be really, really careful. But I met one, and she knew a few, and she knew some, and our little organization within our organization is growing, and other people are now being referred to us. I meant to say, if I was going to give this a title, very vain of me, but I would say it's how little things lead to big things. And the little thing was just having a conversation, and then the next thing you know, you've got a few friends, and then the next thing you know, you're now a group. And I think we know that through like the WRN and this organization as well. So it really is just something to have a first conversation. And I would really like to thank the people, if they're listening, they might be on YouTube watching, who knows. But the people in my group, we've emboldened each other because we talk about it, we get animated and we get angry, and instead of just seething inside about this thing happened at work and it shouldn't have, we can talk about, well, what have you done? What can you do? Have you tried this? And as soon as one person does something, it makes the rest of us a bit braver. We keep giving each other credit, going, well, I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't done it, and well, I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't done it. And it's this wonderful circle of energy that's just really, really building. So one of the things I started doing at work was I decided to join the diversity and inclusion committees. And 3 or 4 years ago I'd have thought, oh yes, I love a bit of diversity and inclusion. But this time I thought, no, I'm going to join because I want to know what they're saying and I want to be able to say things back. And that was really useful. So if any of you work in a large organization that has a D&I group or whatever, if you can bear it, I suggest that you join because you need to know what they're saying. And you also, I mean, that's one of the places that you will be able to speak. And they might hate you, but it's going to be really hard for them to exclude you from the inclusivity team. And that's going to be awkward for them, let's just say. So I did join, and what I found out, which I'm sure some of you know, about diversity and inclusion teams is that people who join are zealots, unless you're sort of secretly joining like me. But they are incredibly zealous, or they are incredibly nice, and they don't see they don't really understand the full picture of, it's sort of the dark side, if you will. And so what I found was, just that. People who are really nice, who would say things like, oh, I don't think it's a toxic topic at all. Think, okay, all right, you're not on Twitter then. And then other people who will say, we are going to get everybody putting pronouns in their bio, so help me God. And you've just sort of got this really frightening zealotry that leaves no room, for opposition. So a few times I did sort of go, well, if you start forcing it, you might create a bit of resentment, which, as much as that feels like an ordinary thing to say, thank God I was on Teams, because my hands were shaking while I said it, and my heart was pounding through my chest, because I thought, but I'm the first person in the history of this organization to say, maybe not everyone needs a rainbow lanyard. Maybe just keep it... keep it volunteering. Oh, didn't think I'd get a big applause for that. So then when I found out about, on these committees, so I did have a chance, I'm not on it anymore, couldn't bear it, but I did have a chance to find out about some of the training they were pushing. And you'll be pleased to know that we've been mentioned in some of the training in my large organization as a perfect example of a neo-Nazi anti-trans hate group. So I started attending as many trainings as I could get away with, which again, I know that we'll all just go, oh my God, it's another diversity training. I can't bear it. I can't bear it. I can't bear it. But if you go, you can take notes, you can take screenshots, you can record them, but you can find a record of everything that's been said. And then you can check it against the law. You can check it against your company's policies. And then you have grounds for complaint. And because, thanks to forced data versus CGD, the belief that there are only two sexes, and I say belief, and that you can't change it, because it is a protected belief, you have grounds to complain when you are being treated unfavorably on that basis. And if you have gone to a training and been told that you are a secret transphobe, if you're worried about fairness in women's sports, if that has been said in your workplace training, then you have been discriminated against because you've been insulted, you've been demeaned, you've been belittled, you've been bullied, and you've been victimized if you try to speak up, which has also happened in my large organization. So because of forced data, we all have the right to say, I've been poorly treated because of my beliefs, and this training is the reason why, and here's the evidence of that. So at the moment I'm in a process to improve the situation, and that's all the detail you're going to get from now on me. So thank you. Let me just see. But yeah, so we can use the systems that protect minority groups at work under the D&I banner. We can use the exact same systems that protect them to protect ourselves, and I think we need to, but you've got to get in there and find out what they're saying. Go to the voluntary trainings, go to the Pride Week workshop to find out about the lady who said her second child wasn't as confident about her medical transition as her eldest child, but hopefully she'll get the drug, hopefully he'll get the drug soon, and so he can properly transition. And this is happening at a workplace training because it was an LGBT parent workshop, and this is being celebrated, and there's nobody saying we shouldn't be celebrating this at all. And yet things have gone so far that any parent who says that, you know, their child has transitioned is uncritically applauded, and there's no room to say maybe that's not a perspective we need to be sharing at work. Call me crazy. Right, what else do I need to say? Oh yeah, and I'll just go back to this training, just you know, because this happens in large organizations. I think somebody's already said they buy in the training, and this training very clearly, it preempted every single one of our arguments: safeguarding, fairness, dignity, religion, all of it. They said anybody that claims to have reasonable concerns on every single thing we've ever said is simply hiding their transphobia. And so this is what we're up against, and because it's happening within large organizations, within these sort of, you know, kind of, I don't know, not just these sort of pre-packaged trainings, we don't know unless we get in there. So that was my little advice, I guess, is to, if you can bear it, get into these D&I things, get into them and find out what they're saying and take notes, and if you've got any grounds to complain, then do so, because we'll fight fire with fire. We'll use their own systems against them. There we go. And then just a quick plug for the famous artist Bertie Rose. I love my worthy of respect in a democratic society t-shirt. And the last little plug, if anybody's interested, the Battle of Ideas is in 2 weeks' time in London, or in 3 weeks' time. It's on the 15th and 16th. The Battle of Ideas is just a weekend of people giving talks, but Maya Forstater will be there talking about lawfare on Saturday, 15th of, I think it's the 15th of October. It's not a cheap weekend, so don't get your hopes up. But also on the docket there, on the bill there, at Battle of Ideas is so many of our friends, shall I say. So many people are talking about this now. They're talking about transing children, they're talking about women's rights, and they're talking about the limits that are being put on anybody who goes against a specific narrative on some very specific issues. And so comparing this to sort of 2-3 years ago, when you'd be lucky to see it, you know, even in the Daily Mail. I feel like it's grown so much, and certainly in large part to lovely women like Miss Kellie-Jay Keane. So thank you.
Yes. Sorry. We will. Oh, sorry, Paul. I'll get to you after this speaker. I'm going to put this down here. Just stand about this.
Sorry, I prepared some notes. Yes, it's me, phone. So hello everyone. In 2015, at about this time of year, my 14-year-old daughter told me she was really a boy. She made a really big deal out of it, with announcements on social media and even a handwritten letter to her great-grandmother. I was told by the professionals around me, including everyone at the girls' school she attended, that I should affirm this, that it would be better to have a trans son than a dead daughter. So I did go along with the new name and the new pronouns and the binders. But I still had doubts. I didn't know much about transition, but I understand enough biology to know that humans can't change sex. I looked for support online and found mermaids. When I contacted them and expressed my doubts, I was told again that it was better to have a trans son than a dead daughter, that anything other than affirmation was abusive and transphobic. Now I knew my daughter wasn't trans. She was a normal little girl who liked pink and princesses and making potions with my cosmetics. She was having a hard time with adolescence, a shitty dad, and a diagnosed ADHD. When she was referred to the Tavistock clinic, I thought finally someone is going to see that she's not really trans, that she's just a face. How wrong I was. They too affirmed her identity. Thankfully, she was too old for puberty blockers, and we were lucky that her therapist seemed to be of the watch and wait persuasion. When she turned 17 and a half, they referred her to the adult gender clinic in Charing Cross, where she would be able to get further treatment. In the meantime, I educated myself, and I found Magdalene Burns and Kellie-Jay and others on YouTube. I found out about the reality of the surgeries and the hormones, and my daughter and I kept talking, arguing about sex and gender, about what it means to be a woman, about what the surgeries and hormones would do to her body. Little by little, I chipped away. I knew it was a phase. My only concern was that she didn't do anything irreversible to her body. A few things told me I was making headway. One day she said, talking about the video I was watching, "I know she's right, but it's upsetting me." The letter she had received from the adult gender clinic was languishing on the side, ignored. I didn't mention it. One day she told me in an unguarded moment, "I'm not a boy." Then she expressed doubts. We found her a sympathetic therapist. And finally, nearly a year ago, she desisted. She can see, looking back, that she didn't want to be a man. She just couldn't see herself as a woman. She does now. She even came to a Speaker's Corner event, and she follows Kellie-Jay on TikTok. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for talking. Well done. Thank you so much for talking. See, look what you can do when you just speak the truth. Go on. Come on with your gingham skirt. I would love that. Yeah, it's fine. If you want to come and stand here, and then everyone can still see and hear you, and we can... Don't go past there. Okay. Do love this. Thank you. Okay, so this is a message that I've kind of had for like the last few months, and then I've wimped out basically every time I've been. So yeah, this time I'm doing it, and thank you to Cozy for giving me the platform to say it. So
this is a message really to someone who isn't here, but it's a message to my left-wing ex-boyfriend who broke up with me when I wouldn't say trans women are women. So yeah, this is to my ex, and when I talked to him about my views, we never talked about the phrase that he asked me to repeat. I explained what kick-started my change of mind, the stories about the detransitioners, but we never discussed the actual slogan and why I couldn't say it. So, trans women are women. The problem with this phrase is it depends on what the word woman means. If the word woman means what it meant in all of history before, that an adult human female, then no. If trans women were adult human females, they would have no need of transition and therefore wouldn't be supposed trans women. If a woman means whoever identifies as one, then I don't know what that means. How can I or anyone else identify with something if we don't know what it is? I can say I like cake if cake has an accepted definition of a sweet baked good. I can't say if I like cake if it widens to include any kind of food. What if by women we mean people who like femininity and who wish to perform sex stereotypes? Or what about some of the new definitions of women I've seen come from the trans community, such as an open mouth, an expectant asshole, blank eyes. How about getting fucked makes you female because fucked is what a female is? Or any psychic operation in which the self is sacrificed to make room for the desire of another. Are these definitions now what the word woman means? No. If these things are what a woman means, then I would have to say that I'm not one, because I'm not an erotic image. I'm not a thing to be objectified and pornified. I'm not interested in performing sexist stereotypes. But then what am I? Am I a body with a vagina, as the Lancet described last year? Am I a bleeder, a birthing receptacle, a breeder, a breast haver, a womb carrier, a non-man? Because this seems to me how the Taliban views women. Yes. I had never considered before how misogynistic the ideas being put forward by this movement were. I had assumed that trans women, and I don't use that word anymore, but I did back then, were vulnerable people who had had difficult lives. I thought there was no risk involved. I didn't think it was a fetish. I thought they were who they said they were. I believed the whole thing. But then I saw how many male trans people talked about how they enjoyed being objectified, like Grace Lavery, who said, "There's something about being treated like shit by men that feels like affirmation itself." And then there was those who see women who's the same way that incels do. There's a male trans journalist who has written for Vice, Vox and Rolling Stone, who tweeted what he wants the future to be: a world in which trans girls high-five each other while spit-roasting cis girls, and in which they could access cis girl breeding facilities. This was published by Redux, if you want to check that out. A march against male-on-female violence in Manchester was attacked by a male with a trans identity. The same person had also protested an anti-rape protest in 2020. A rape shelter in Vancouver had death threats graffitied on their walls and a dead rat nailed to the door. Surely at the point that you are aggressive towards the most vulnerable woman, you need to ask yourself the Mitchell and Webb question of, are we the baddies? And if these people who claim to be women are women, then why do they hate women so much? Then there's the stories coming out of the lesbian community. There are videos and guides telling lesbian women that their orientation is bigoted and they need to unlearn it. Young lesbians try to ignore their instincts in order to be kind and accepting. Others try to stand up, but then they face bullying and exclusion. When some lesbian women recounted their stories to the BBC, Stonewall's response, Stonewall, that should have been there to speak and to advocate for lesbians, called them sexual racists for being same-sex attracted. If one of your lesbian friends, and that's to my ex, came to you and said they were being pressurized into relationships they didn't want to be in, that if they stood up for their same-sex attraction, they would have their life ruined, what would you do? The irony is, for all everyone repeats the mantras, it's clear who society views as the male and as the female. Which group is asked to move over? Which group is asked to be kind? When a male prisoner, even if he's a rapist, requests to be housed with women in the prisons, the prison service says yes. But the feelings of the women don't matter. Their rights to safety don't matter. When it comes to sport, the female contestants are expected to be kind and supportive, even though the male in question isn't being kind and supportive of them. In a UK hospital, a woman was raped because her rights to security mattered less than male feelings. When she reported the rape to the police, the hospital denied it and told the police that no rape could have occurred because no man was present. Again, to my ex, if this happened to your mother, your nieces, your female friends, what would you do? Would you call them bigots and cancel them, tell them it couldn't possibly have happened? We need good people to talk. Doing the right thing isn't about virtue signalling the same opinions as your friend group on Twitter, on social media. J.K. Rowling said in Harry Potter, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. I actually disagree with this. It's harder to stand up to your friends because the cost is higher. So that was why, with my ex, it took bravery to start bringing up the conversation. So I was confused when, after telling him the stories of homophobic parents and anguished detransitioners, that he didn't go home and look. Surely, if he had cared so much about trans people as he claimed to do, he would want to know if the quality of trans healthcare was so appalling. Did he just not care that much? Or was he too scared to look? In a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it is until this shit hits the mainstream, he will have to have his realization. And if his values were the ones that I had originally believed them to be, about equality and fairness, all those kind of things, then he will have his realization. And if, but before I spoke, he could have at least said, well, I didn't know any better. But now you have to say that he knew, and he ignored it. He shared a tweet from Nancy Kelly where she said, shame on people questioning the gender movement. And I say, no, shame on you. Shame on you for throwing lesbian and gay people under the bus. Shame on you for sending gender non-conforming children to a ball vanger. Shame on you to throwing lesbian and gay, shame on you for turning your back on women. So I conclude this speech with this. This man let me down. I also think he let himself down. Sex is real. Gender is socially constructed, patriarchal bullshit. People with gender dysphoria need actual evidence-based care. Self-ID gives malevolent men free rein to do what they want. And to the millennial left-wing men, we're adults. We're not children anymore. We're actual adults. And it's time to stop believing in fairy tales. I'm absolutely certain that your ex is now dating a trans woman. Because he simply just didn't know. Can I just say, a long time ago, I can't even remember, it's like pre-COVID, we went to a talk where somebody had released a book for girls about becoming women, and in it she'd included a chapter on girls that then become something other than girls, and included breast binding and removing breasts. And we all sat there, and one of the ladies that was with us, who I won't name, but she now lives in Northern Ireland, and she wrote to me about 2 years ago, because she was one of the first people to ever buy a t-shirt, and I sent her this sort of celebratory t-shirt, and she wrote to me and said that Northern Ireland is absolutely awash
with this woke nonsense, a place where we all know women's rights are so very far behind, and they've really jumped on this, and it always perplexed me why. But obviously misogyny is the underpinning of all of this, so of course the more sexist, the more women have been dismissed through history, the more likely they will continue. But I was cleaning out my wardrobe and I found this wonderful t-shirt. Breast binding is harmful, and I just want to say to any teachers that are using these silly advisory things like, be careful they can't breathe, that's because breast binding is really damn risky. It includes difficulty breathing, compressed or broken ribs, punctured or collapsed lungs, back pain, compression of the spine, damaged breast tissue, damaged blood vessels, blood clots, inflamed ribs, or even heart attacks. So please, any teachers, and I know it's difficult, I really do know it's difficult to speak up, but you're either speaking up or you're complicit in your staff rooms. And if more of you, there are teachers that come here sometimes, and when they speak, they really do give an opportunity for other teachers in their staff room to also speak up. So please, do not be afraid of being the first. Be afraid of not speaking, because that's where the real damage is at Georgia.
It's just a brief note really about the self-appointed avant-garde in the 21st century, namely the socialist feminist camp. Of course, the characteristics of the avant-garde is basically a social movement that rejects the established norms. It is characterized by words like innovative, experimental, progressively radical, and daring. It was also meant to be a rebellion against the status quo. In its formative years, it was chiefly associated with social change, that's the avant-garde, of social change brought about through the expanding consciousness of society. However, one cannot use old tricks in a new world dominated by social media and lies. You know, we're 2 centuries later now, and we still have this avant-garde of socialist feminism, right? So, whose new medium is no longer the sculpture or canvas or the arts. It's the new art of expression is judgment by Twitter, where rumors regularly paint some women as mythological creatures or domesticated zombies. We are told that socialist movements are the initial drivers behind social change. This was meant to be offensive to the snobbish elite of the society. 100 years later, the patriarchy with its lobbyist elites responds by creating misogynist cults which cross all party politics and reverts us back to thinking that the only solution is to think in terms of right versus wrong. Exactly what the TRS want. Their right, our wrong. If these how have these head girls or pioneers or feminist avant-garde artists, inverted commas, expanded the horizons of society's thinking, consciousness, traditions, cultures and standards, ontologically speaking? Does anybody know? You know, what has this self-appointed avant-garde of socialist feminism actually done is to erase themselves from their own avant-garde, because they are ignoring women to please all men. But the very women it has tried to influence or affect are well ahead now of the game, right? We're well ahead of the game, right? Because we have troops on the ground canvassing for our rights, because they matter to all of us, all women. You know, will this self-appointed avant-garde canvass against their own party? I don't think so. So we can see all this factionalism. However, we will not allow you to dictate to us who has freedom of speech, because within the limits of the law, by attempting to destroy a different vanguard of women, by a constant hazing, mischaracterization, an insult. No, that's how they're trying to erase us. Instead of, as Julia quite eloquently put in Uplifting, instead of exercising a positive power over society to bring women together into their intellectual arena, what they've done is ridiculed our vanguard of women by effectively telling us we are not doing womanhood properly, right? Because when you call us pound shop handmaidens instead of the possible pioneers that would lead humanity to realizing greater, more loftier goals, you downgrade us and you try to erase us. So I want to ask these women, what have they achieved in the last 7 years? Oh yeah,
thank you so much. I've heard they've done very well. Keir Starmer's well and truly convinced. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Anna from Nordic Model Now, which is a single issue campaign for the abolition of prostitution and related practices, including surrogacy. I don't know about you, but the idea of men who claim to be women being housed in women's prisons, where women can't lock the door even when they are using the toilet, makes me incredibly angry. Why must we accept the claim that men are women when white people claiming to be black are laughed out of court? Why are we not allowed to define our own boundaries or even who we are? The answer, of course, is patriarchy, a system that defines women not as human beings, but as servants for men, a system that long predates the modern transgender movement. But don't make the mistake of believing that patriarchy has always existed. It hasn't. For most of the 1 million years or so that human beings have roamed the earth, human culture was fairly egalitarian, and women and men mostly lived in some kind of mutual equilibrium. It was only after human beings developed agriculture and began to live in more settled and complex communities that society became stratified and older men began to take control. This happened at different times in different parts of the world, but always at a similar stage of technological development. In the Middle East, it happened around 7,000 years ago, which is practically no time in the long history of the human race. To exercise and maintain their power, the patriarchs had to subjugate everyone else, both men and women. They did this by subordinating all women and buying off men by giving them power over the women of their own social class and lower social classes. A genius and self-perpetuating system that bound everyone in an evil net. Women were divided into two groups, respectable women and prostitutes. Respectable women were dependent on the patronage of one man, husband or father, and the prostitutes were game for all men, for any man to rape. Respectable women had to cover their heads, and the prostitutes were not allowed to cover theirs, so everyone could see which group each person, each woman belonged to. Most women accepted respectability in the hope that thereby their children would have better lives and to avoid being fair game themselves. And each woman had to ensure that she was always taken as a respectable wife and wasn't mistaken for a pound shop, for a prostitute, and all that entailed. She had to distance herself from the prostitutes, and so women were divided from one another in order that they may more easily be screwed. This was the origin of gender, rigid sex-based social roles that are almost impossible to escape. It was the historic downfall of women, and the institution of prostitution was inseparable from that practice, from that process. It follows that women as a group will never recover our status as fully human while prostitution has free rein. Since then, every time the ruling elite has tried to increase and consolidate its power, there has been an expansion of women's property and of the prostitution system. And now, as the neoliberal elite are siphoning off the wealth built up by ordinary people, it's no accident that we're witnessing a massive expansion of the prostitution industries. Just consider how the internet is awash with the most brutal misogynistic porn, and how our young people are being sold the lie that sex work is real work and a free choice. Emily, one of the members of Nordic Model Now, listened to this propaganda when she was in dire financial straits at university. She found out the hard way that the reality doesn't match this rhetoric. This is what she says, I quote, "I was sold a complete lie. It's not easy money. To the buyer, you are nothing more than an object for their consumption, not an actual human being with emotions. You're expected to just put up with whatever they want to do and say to you. The exchange of money makes them feel entitled to treat you however they like, with no regard for your feelings or consent. Not only that, but the buyers know very well how to push the price down as low as possible." End quote. She now believes that young people should be given better information and be warned about the dangers. This is what the Nordic Model Now is trying to do. I would like to ask you all to help our campaign. Sometimes we feel like the poor relations in this movement. We're asking you to get behind us and help us raise awareness of the harms of the sexual exploitation industries. Follow us on social media, share our stuff, get in touch if you want to get involved with us. We're holding a conference next month in central London, actually on the same day as that, whatever thing mentioned earlier, the October the 15th. It's called Students for Sale, Tools for Resistance, and I promise you it's going to be brilliant.
Students for Sale.
Tickets are on sale on Eventbrite. They're only £5, £3 for concessions. Please come along and bring your friends and colleagues. You will hear from women like Emily who have themselves been through prostitution. The most powerful act of resistance is to listen to these women and stand shoulder to shoulder with them, to refuse to be divided. I know that this subject is painful. It brings up all the myriad ways in which we've been hurt as women. But we must face it if we are to be successful in reclaiming women's human rights. I have some flyers and posters that I'll give out in a minute. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Do you have anything for schools? Do you have any guidance for schools, Anna? Do you have any guidance for schools? Because I know in schools their idea.
That's the next thing on our
The next thing.
We've got a handbook for universities which might be useful for secondary schools.
Well, just as an aside, one of my children brought something home the other day where he said he's 13, and in his year group they're going to talk about attitudes to pornography, not harms, attitudes to pornography. So I think we all know what sort of attitudes will be permitted there. Right, somebody else was going to speak who I just said could next. It wasn't you. It will be you, 100%. She left. Okay. No, it's Venice.
She
You.
I could go first.
Oh, she said you could go first.
Do you want to do it quick?
Yeah? Sorry. I'm going to pin that on there. There you go. Right.
I just wanted to do a quick lesson on purity politics. Who here is vegan? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us. 8. Thank you. So, 8 of us. Now, who knows what happens to female cows in the dairy industry? They're reproductive. Female cows are abused because they are female. They are put into a rape rack and inseminated by male farmers. They are forced to carry a baby
for 9 months, and when they give birth, they go through that. I can't imagine giving birth to a calf. Is that pleasant? And then when all their hormones to care for the baby are in full force, that baby is taken and killed, unless it is a female, and then it replaces the mother and goes through pregnancy after pregnancy after pregnancy until they collapse and they are sent to slaughter. It sickens me. It absolutely sickens me. However, and feminists drinking dairy, and it sickens me. But if we had this movement and said, you cannot be in this women's rights movement unless you are also vegan, that gets rid of us all down to 7. And it's the same with women on the left in left-wing politics. It's fine for lesbians to say, Stonewall no longer represents me, because they don't. Stonewall has changed. And it's the same for people on the left who can say Labour no longer supports us, because it doesn't. This issue, the definition of woman, is not just a definition of woman. Postmodernism says there's no such thing as truth, there's no such thing as meaning. You can't have the word woman. We are untethering ourselves from reality. It is everything, and it's not an echo chamber of left-wing feminists saying, if you don't agree with us, you aren't welcome. It gets us nowhere.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Where's the question? Here. Is this right? Is this the right place? Yes. First of all, I'd just like to say thanks to Kellie-Jay for getting us here. I wasn't there, but what looked like an amazing event in Brighton, and just showing us what we're up against, but then at the same time showing the world how strong we are. So I say thanks, Kellie-Jay, for everything that you do, and I'm hoping that you're going to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in Sheffield Central in 700 days. I just really quickly wanted to say, just to update everybody about the Kenwood Ladies Pond action. Thank you to everyone who came, which what seemed like now like the last day of summer, wasn't it? And now we're in a new season with a new fight. And with the Ladies Pond, the next part of our campaign is Sex Matters and their survey. So I don't know if everyone's filled it out. If you haven't, afterwards get a card from me. And I've also got some of the nice postcards if you want some of those. So yeah, the next stage is we're gonna get as many people, especially in the local area, to fill it out. And then Maya and the Sex Matters crew are going to make a report. And then we're going to spend the winter putting pressure on local councils, councillors, to then hopefully take to the City of London. So that's where we are. Also, if you haven't, have you signed the Swimming for Women, Let Our Sisters Swim petition, which already reached 10,000. I don't know what it's on now. Okay, so thanks everyone for your support, and thanks again to Posey. Hands. Who's next? Yes. So we'll go you, then you. Yes. Then you, Claire. Then you put your hand up, didn't you? There you go. You can stand back here.
Hi, I'm probably going to say something a bit unpopular here, which is a plea for complexity and nuance, and people making their own minds up what to support, where they're not comfortable to support. I'm been involved in a very quiet individual way in liberal progressive politics all my life. I was taken to CND rallies when I was in a pram, and I've been through that sort of journey. The first time I was really involved in this issue was at a WP UK meeting in Reading way back in 2018. It was absolutely terrifying. We had trans rights activists beating on the window. We had to have a police escort to get us out safely, to get us down to the railway station. And on that night, I was catapulted into a new world. I still support WP UK.
I am a fan of Jane Clare Jones's writings. Her Annals of the Turf Wars is absolutely brilliant. I stewarded at Bristol. I got thrown about at Brighton at Standing for Women meetings. And I'm just making a plea. What I hear is people saying, oh, Standing for Women is like some kind of cult with Kellie-Jay at the centre and everybody's just fangirling and, you know, you're all a bunch of idiots. And I also hear these women who have been thinking about and working in academic feminism for their lives are just sitting in ivory towers and they don't understand what's going on the ground and they are the enemy. Now, I don't really agree with either of those propositions. I mean, I'm standing here speaking now. And I just draw a quick parallel with the situation in Iran, where I wrote a tweet that was completely ignored, of course, on Twitter, where I said, you know, we should all stand behind those women in Iran. It's absolutely incredible what they're doing. Their bravery is phenomenal. You see those young women, they're out. They're risking their lives. You know, we might feel worried about coming to a Standing for Women meeting. This is nothing compared to what's going on in Iran. Those women are just mind-boggling. But nobody read the rest of the thread, of course, where I said, you know, there's a war going on. Maybe this is the CIA is, you know, fomenting trouble in Iran. Oh, you know, that Iran, they export, you know, terrorism and arms to all the enemies of Israel. Maybe this is a Zionist plot. And then there's, oh, all those men out there that are supporting all those women in Iran. I don't remember them going on about women's rights in the past. Maybe they're just using this, and then once they've thrown off that horrible theocracy there, women are just going to be sidelined as usual. You know, it's always after the revolution, isn't it? And then over the next few hours, I saw exactly those points being made on Twitter by people. You know, it was like a complete self-fulfilling prophecy. So we're in a different world now. Those old certainties of left and right and party politics, some people are still immersed in them and they give their loyalty to them and they feel like they need to put lines that they won't cross. And this is the unpopular bit. I respect that. I respect if somebody is involved in this for and they're putting themselves out there, I respect that, even if I profoundly disagree with them. We all have a right to put our own lines and to say, personally, I'm not going to cross that. The last week has been pretty depressing on Twitter, to be honest, watching people tear each other down. But I'm not going to let myself get depressed by that. What you have to do individually is look at the evidence, make your own mind up, and do what you're comfortable with. And that is really all I've got to say. Everybody runs away from my
For what it's worth, I don't know that anybody is, I hope it's been really clear. I don't think anybody's saying stop reading Jane Clare Jones' concise tweets. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying don't subscribe to, is it Radical Notion? Don't buy it. Nobody's saying don't go to WP UK meetings. I think most of us are just saying, could those women stop publicly asking for denouncements and other sort of fascistic, totalitarian, nasty little tools? That's all we want. Just leave us alone. Is pretty much all I'm saying. You know, I think Ricky Gervais says it, doesn't he? Like, it's like walking past a notice board where it says guitar lessons and going, I don't fucking take guitar. I think it's very much like that. Like, if this event isn't for you and they don't agree with it, they don't subscribe to it, fine, don't come. But actually, let me just assure you all, when it comes to invitations to Brighton, I sent 4 very explicit, targeted invitations with offers of a very warm welcome to Jean Hatchett, Jane Clare Jones, Julie Bindel, and Women's Place. And I said to each and every, and also to Nick Williams, who was a little bit miffed because of the tone of the email was very much bridge building, and she's never really burnt any bridges with any of us. So I just want to make that clear as well. Fair Play for Women have always been very non-partisan, which I think is the element of their success. So I did get replies from Julie Bindel and Jean Hatchett, but I did say to them, you'd be warmly welcomed. And actually, I think women who aren't blue-tick feminists, who aren't well known, who are taking personal risks, who do feel shaky on the train, it would be a really good boost for them to see us united. And as we all know, they didn't come. Anyway, would you like to come and speak?
Hi, I meant to.
Do you want to be on camera?
Yeah,
come and stand here.
Thank you.
There you go.
Hi, I'm actually meant to be in Speaker's Corner with my husband, but he saw all of you and he knows I follow all of you, and he said, you have to come here. He was on his way to the loo and he said, no, don't join me, join them. Disclaimer, I am a Christian, sorry, but I love all of you. So I just want to say, just very briefly, I've been following Posey forever and I'm a fan, and but we've never met, but we have common friends on Facebook. So I want to say, actually, I have a 4 and a 2-year-old, and the war starts at primary, not at secondary. They are 4 and 2, and the trans ideology starts from day dot nursery. So my daughter is 4. Next year she will be asked what she likes about being a girl and what she doesn't like about being a girl. And but it all starts, so I just really wanted to just read the letter I wrote to the school, and I'm supported by a lot of parents, all faiths and none, opposite sex, same sex. My main concern is for the children, and I have kind of put everyone on notice, just like the Tavistock is going to be sued oblivion by 1,000+ parents. Schools are going to be put on notice and probably sued as well, because I've told them in no uncertain terms, I do not teach that a girl can be a boy at home, and if she learns this and adopts this mentality, this is coming from you. So I'd like to just read my letter. I'm going to protect my daughter's anonymity, so I'm calling her Jane. Yeah. So I'll forget the pleasantries at the beginning. The purpose of my email is to discuss the content within PSHE. We wish to raise some concerns, ask some questions, and request to opt out of the sex section. I recently attended a conference about RSE, PSHE curriculum, where a barrister, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, historians, sociologists, and childcare professionals spoke out publicly and very strongly against its content. We too are concerned about it, and as aforementioned, wish to opt out immediately of the sex part. Our daughter only turned 4 in July, and we believe this curriculum is too sexualized and ideologically driven. I see that the school's PSHE provider is Jigsaw. I have quite a few concerns about their material. Jeannie the Jigsaw, the toy used for demonstration purposes, is non-binary and gender neutral. Jane is 4, and so, like many girls her age, she identifies as her dollies, and specifically the character Elsa most of the time. Will she be free and supported in identifying as a girl, or will she be encouraged to see herself as a non-binary jigsaw piece during these lessons? When describing herself, will she be asked or encouraged to use gender-neutral language? We would obviously like her to be affirmed as her natural assigned sex at birth, given that's her wish too. 2, language matters. I'm a language teacher and speak openly about the abolition of female language like mother and breastfeeding, which is currently being erased and replaced by birthing person and chest feeding, currently under review at NHS and RCOG. Bearing in mind I'm a mother and breastfeeder of 4 years, will my daughter be free to use the female terminology she has always used and grown up with within her PSHE class without being reprimanded? In Jigsaw's glossary of child speak, I see they openly state that they avoid using binary terms like the words girl and boy, but are keen to introduce the term cisgender to primary school children. I would never refer to myself as this, and it would distress me to hear my daughter referring to herself as such. I don't believe in the labelling of anyone at primary age. In my opinion, it's far too premature to teach children about gender fluid sexualities and accompanying terminology, especially when the concept of love to a child overwhelmingly means simply friendship, family and kindness. In any case, cis is often used as a slur within the LGBTQ+ community. Jigsaw state they teach LGBTQ+ themes as early as possible. Will she be taught that a girl can be a boy and a boy can be a girl? It's my religious, I'm a Christian, philosophical and scientific belief that a person cannot change their biological sex and that sex is not merely a feeling. In Jigsaw's glossary of terms for gender, they define gender as, quote, one's sense of being a boy, a girl, neither or both. The way a person feels about themselves, their bodies, their behaviour and where they fit as a boy, man, girl, woman, trans or other. This is another red flag definition for us, as sex is not just a sense or a feeling. We would like to teach our daughter that as a girl and future woman of the world, she can be anything she so chooses. She loves football, for example. Just because she enjoys a traditionally male sport, this does not mean she is a boy, and she will biologically never be a boy. I find the idea deeply misogynistic that girls in primary schools are embarking on the dangerous path to transition simply because they enjoy traditionally male activities and have been falsely taught that this could mean that they are male. These impressionable children are then set on a path potentially leading to puberty blockers, body mutilation of healthy organs, infertility, and a lifetime of physical pain, and I know the 1,000+ families about to sue the Tavistock Clinic agree. Before my daughter even joined nursery, I had a short and sweet chat with the brilliant Mrs. X to express our standpoint that we would support Jane becoming a footballer, cricketer, engineer, anything she so chooses. But we would never accept her being taught that she may have been born into the wrong body. This is completely at odds with our Christian beliefs and science itself. I also mentioned that I did not want her ever looking at books mentioning breast binding, female mutilation, or rejecting or disparaging material about her female sex traits. And you better believe this material is rife in primary schools, okay? So you need to look, mothers and grandmothers, you need to look at what your kids are being taught. The most successful female author, beating her male peers by a few miles, and children's author in history, regularly receives death threats for expressing her gender critical / female positive views. I'm no longer using gender critical because that's their language. I'm saying female positive. Now more than ever, I believe women need to speak up that our opinions, beliefs and rights matter. We are glad to see the pushback against Stonewall and the closure of the Tavistock Gender Clinic due to, quote, catastrophic failings. We're also delighted that Alison Bailey and Maya Forster's cases against their employers and Stonewall were successful, which protected and upheld their gender-critical, sex-positive views under the Equality Act 2010, which obviously extends to parents too. I want to say, schools are using third-party providers like Jigsaw, and they all quote that gender reassignment is a protected characteristic under the Equality Act. There is little to no mention that actually your beliefs as parents, philosophical, atheist, whatever, your beliefs are also protected, and they're completely irrelevant. Gender reassignment beliefs are completely irrelevant to primary school age kids because they start from 18. What's going on? Okay, we also welcome the Attorney General, now she's Home Sec, Suella Braverman's recent statements that schools should not be, quote, indoctrinating their pupils with, quote, one-sided and controversial views about gender, or the belief that children could decide which gender they are irrespective of their biological sex, which is a, quote, highly contested outlook and, quote, should not be taught to youngsters as unquestionable fact. We would like to be free to teach our biological view that biological sex is immutable at the appropriate age, and obviously alongside the importance of being kind to those who respectfully hold different opinions and pursue different paths, because they all say this is to stop bullying, to stop trans bullying, okay? But we know there are 10 reasons why children get bullied before being trans, okay? That's a government survey in 2018. I won't quote it because I'm continuing. So, yeah, sorry. It goes on and on. It goes on and on. Sorry. Okay.
No, it's great. It's great. It's like the epistle.
Oh no, thank you. No, it's not really. I'm just an angry mother. Yeah, everyone knows Jane's mother is a TERF, okay? It's pretty clear. So yeah, and just to say, you know, this isn't about the TERF war, okay? But they are teaching very young children very early on about private parts and about consent, which is really problematic, because for me it should always be a no. If they're primary school age, it should just be a no. There shouldn't be a yes or a maybe or yes if you like it. But because now this new curriculum, RSC, relationship and sexual education, is teaching children that all children are sexual from birth, pretty much. Yeah, no, seriously. So this is my plea, is that you look into this, because secondary school is too late. Female human adults are too late. It's the primary school children that they are going for. Yeah, I mean, you will be shocked at what they teach them. I won't go into it now. But basically, my daughter is so kind, loving, holds everyone by the hand. She's 4, but you have to get this in early, okay? So this is just my plea. I have to go now because my husband's waiting for me over there. The patriarchy is waiting for me. No, I'm joking. But I love you all. I do describe myself as a T. I'm a trans exclusionary without the radical feminism, you know. But again, I love you all, and thank you for letting me speak. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Who did I say was after this? Was it you, Claire? Come on.
Oh, put my microphone on. 200 years later. Wonderful to see everybody here. Yes, let's give ourselves a cheer. It was wonderful to see everybody in Brighton. Brighton is a different place now, and it was exactly as Posey said, that we come there, whether we're frightened, whether we're not frightened, we get to say our piece. Yes. And I was so busy saying all the other pieces that I forgot to mention why I was dressed up so weird. And of course, people could have mistaken me for one of the handmaidens. Whereas a few of you who know me know that this is my Elizabeth Fry look. Elizabeth Fry, let's hear it for Elizabeth. Now what Julia Long said earlier is absolutely right. The Quaker Central Administration, based at Friend's House, that is supposed to act as our servants, has been monumentally trans. I know because I've been battling with them for 4 years. I've been battling with them as an open rape survivor, a rape survivor almost killed and raped for doing peace witness at Greenham Common. And the Quaker movement is happy not to come and talk to me. Right? That's the email they won't look at. The same Quaker movement or the same Quaker administration who told me you must take the MBE LGBT because of the good it could do. Yes? So please don't imagine that the Quaker movement is a single decision. It isn't. There is a central administration and they have been trans. What they are doing is trampling on the memory of Elizabeth Fry. Trampling on her memory. Trampling on every part of her work, and it's a disgrace. And I'm only down in Brighton, so if anybody fancies a 1 or 2 are gathered together in front of Friend's House, let me know, and I bring me togs and me lollipop, and we can have a lovely vigil outside Friend's House. That's the one I'm looking forward to. Now, Quakers was a derogatory term. It was something we were called to be nasty to us.
What we called ourselves in the early days was seekers after the truth. And I was telling them down in Brighton that not only am I Quaker, not only a rape survivor, not only a lesbian, and what are lesbians? Female homosexuals. What are lesbians? Female homosexuals. There are no other. Literally none. So, Elizabeth Fry, we have a once in a lifetime opportunity. The fiver went out of circulation in 2016, the same year that the MOJ started counting their transgender prison population. Yes, I've got all 5 years. I've got all 5 years of the sexual offending too. I hope you've all got the message that 99%, more than 99% of sentenced, i.e. guilty, beyond all reasonable doubt, sexual offenders in jail are male.
Yes.
That also means, are we good at sums? Yeah. Are we good at sums? Really? Okay, let's try this really, really tricky one. 100 minus 99. One. Oh, you've got it. How brilliant. How amazing.
Less than 1.
Less than 1. Extra gold star to the lesbian in the front row. There we go. The point about female-only spaces is that the measure is the rate of female sexual offending, which is less than 1%. The only mathematical measure that anybody should accept for transgender sexual offenders is less than or equal to 1, and then they would come close. But as I told them in Brighton, I've got my autistic superpower of mathematical processing, as well as my Quaker seeking after the truth, and I can place a mathematical numerical value on the sexual offending of 3 populations. Female 1, male 104, 120. And you know what the transgender, both sexes, sexual offending rate is? Somewhere between 35 and 94. Right? We already have that data. Why am I having so much trouble getting that to where it needs to go to end this abomination? Literally an abomination of putting transgender males into female prisons. It is wicked, it is wrong, and Elizabeth Fry would want me to fight this with every bone in my body. Is anybody expecting not to have a glass in their hand on the 1st of January? No? Well, make sure you remember that that is the second that the law that Elizabeth Fry got passed, the 1823 Jails Act, which gave us sex-segregated prisons and female warders for female prisoners. That whole fiver thing, oh, she's a great penal reformer, but nobody mentioned she gave us sex-segregated prisons. She not only gave them in Britain, she gave them across the whole of the then British Empire. I'll let them go by. Yeah, no, I'm almost done. So plans are afoot here and in Australia, where she had barracks built, because before they were built, they were pushing the women out onto the beaches, and they were left to fend for themselves. And of course, what happened? Yeah, so she intervened from Britain. She got a barracks. She got a boat to take the women to the barracks so that they had a sheltered beginning in Australia. I am now in touch with an Australian woman and she said, hey! My great-great-grandfather built those Parramatta barracks. So we have got a chance for a global celebration of sex-segregated prisons. And one of the finest pioneers who was absolutely against prostitution and did everything in her power to protect those women and girls. I'm done. Oh yes, so sorry.
Thank you so much.
Do
Thank
my
you
best.
so much. Right, we've got to keep them quite short because it's getting to nearly an hour and a half. Is that okay? If you come and stand over here. All right, lovely. Just there.
Okay. Okay, the phrase contested and controversial views being taught in schools. Can I just erase that phrase and replace it with a four-letter word? Lies. Now the other thing I want to say is, can we please stop using the word gender? Biological organisms do not have a gender, they have a sex, female or male, except a few invertebrates which are hermaphrodite, but we don't need to bother about them. I don't like this term gender conforming or gender non-conforming. It sounds essentialist to me, therefore sexist. It is sexist to say women or girls are not logical. It is sexist to say men or boys have no empathy. I certainly have met men with no empathy. I have also met women with no empathy. Individuals are individuals and they should be able to develop according to what is right for them to develop. There's no such thing as gender in human life. Can we just stop using the word and stop using gender conformity and gender non-conformity?
Hi. Right. Microphone. Thank you so much. It's her birthday. Just in case you can't see, she's quite quiet about it.
I didn't tell anyone. Right. Hello. I'd like to talk about Brighton. And in the aftermath of Brighton, I'd heard that I had been exploited. I'd been exploited by Posey. And now Posey is a fantastic woman, but she is no Darren Brown. And I very much was making my own decisions there. And it made me think, how was I exploited? Was I exploited when Posey put me on her platform and gave me the confidence to talk, that then made me confident enough to speak to other women in my gym and say, well, I don't believe that. What do you think? Or did Posey exploit me when she sent me to the pub early with other women? And the reason she did that, and the reason she wears such bright colours, is to be the centre of attention. And that is because she stayed until the bitter end to lure those angry TRAs, one who was carrying a bag of knives, to make sure we were all safe and they weren't going to follow us. So if that's exploitation, bring it on, do some more of it, because it's really empowering women. And I'm going to finish, because I have been thinking about my mother a lot recently, on one thing she taught me, and I've changed the wording so my mother did not swear, is those who stir the shitty pot one day will be made to lick the shitty spoon. I'm done. Over and out.
Happy birthday. Thank you. Would you like to speak? Right, we're going to round up soon if you're all freezing and head to the pub. There you go.
Yes. Hello, I'm trying to keep well, and the last time I was very, very disturbed here because I tried to get to my daughter and granddaughter, whom my granddaughter I didn't see for 3 years now. And of course, after speaking here, even a member of this community tried to stop me. And I was very, very upset and disturbed. So what do we do in this country when we are so obsessed and distressed and disturbed? We go to NHS, mental health services. That's where I went. I went to Camden and Islington mental health advisory team. And I said, so here they really advised that, which they gave me in the end, and I didn't hear it immediately. It was from my GP I heard. They advised me to go to speak to mermaids. Oh, no. It's black and white, and I got it from my GP. What happened actually? So here I'm just reading you something from my notes, which is notes from the psychiatric services of Camden and Islington. It's written the name of psychologist, but should I cover him? Okay. He was very supportive, because when I came in, there are two men, I think one or two, they were wearing rainbows around their necks. And I was disturbed by the rainbows. And I told him, it's an ideology. Then he pointed at my cross and he said to me that it's ideology too. And so he agreed that it was ideology, but he really thought that I have a very transphobic views, and which he told me about. So he wrote to me, self-presented disclosing that she is in crisis due to ongoing relation difficulties with her grandson. I only told him about my granddaughter. He said, grandson, transgender female to male, due to my views. Then she feels, it's about me written, she feels that she has lost her grandson. I kept on, in brackets, kept on referring to him as my granddaughter, her granddaughter, and spoke of anger that this has ignited in her. Obviously, this man didn't know what female was. If he tries to take, from the puppy, tries to take somebody, female will be angry. Yes, and then she said, here it says, reading everything, so here he said, that I pose no risk, that I'm nil alcohol, nil everything, nil any medication. They discharged me. GP to advise Natalia to consider phoning mermaids to speak with other parents who have had children transitions, which I did, and I spoke for an hour with another lady who, during the hour conversation, she was working for mermaids. They don't have any staff who are medically, scientifically really can say that they are anyone. But during our conversation, this lady had her child transition, so she told me, I believe that this is better, I believe. Then I told, you know your belief, I have my beliefs. Beliefs are not easy to change. And they transferred me to utilize some kind of trans-wiki to find resources, I supposed to find it. And they were saying me, so the assessing clinicians also felt that there was slight provocative element in which she was expecting us to challenge her contentious views. I had contentious views, and thus gave her carte blanche to escalate. Nil risk issues highlighted. I would need counseling. Shall I wait to reconnect with my family? However, she may find hard pressed to find clinicians that are comfortable working with her views. So my views are really not mainline NHS. NHS is sending me to Mermaids. But while I was here, I spoke to a lady who 7 years ago, and she doesn't feel like it, wasn't inside mental health hospital. She was in psychiatric hospital, Millview, 7 years ago. And during this day, on the ward, it was one member of staff on the ward for the care of patients, and he was trans. It was trans from male to female, and plus admin staff. It was one trans, male to female. God, you're confused. By the way, they were mistaken because they said that I perceive losing of my grandson. You know what? If they're true, if even they transgender, I will lose my granddaughter, not grandson. Then they always say, you lost your grandson, granddaughter, and you gain grandson. Okay, their mental health, they should figure out. At least tell like, I lost my granddaughter, I never lost my grandson. You know what? The thing's like, I lost my daughter because my daughter had to support my granddaughter, so your charity will not steal my granddaughter, and will not, so she had to engage with psychiatric services. So they wouldn't do this operation, so try to keep her, because she's even hen looking after the chickens. And you know what? First of all, you try to make a cock to sit on the eggs. Try to make a cock and think that it's not inside of you. You know? So who is right? Who is wrong? Is a psychiatry whom I'm looking help from? Psychiatry is going to tell me that I have continuous views. Okay? You know, you learn a bit of biology, yeah? Play with hens and chickens before looking after human beings and after mothers. Okay? And if anybody needs the letters, I'm going to reveal it all. If one child is going to be saved. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you put it up more. And not because I'm a lesbian, but I don't mind being a lesbian. Hello? Is this going well?
Yeah, go and stand there, just about here. It'd be lovely.
Just about here, okay. All right. Okay.
It'll work.
All right.
I'll pick you up.
Okay. Hello to all my adult human females here today. And our male allies. And even though I'm supposed to be a white nationalist, there's a lone trans bloke over there waving some trans flag. But hi! It's a huge delight to see all of you here today, especially after the week we've all had from our very, very successful event in Brighton. Thank you, Kellie-Jay. Last week in Brighton, I spoke about the history of women, about the giantesses Millicent Fawcett and Emily Walden Davison, whose shoulders... Oh, right.
No, for people here.
Right.
Yeah.
Whose shoulders we stand on and whose brave actions paved the way for women to no longer be seen as male property and to be liberated from being a marginalized and oppressed single-sex female class. This week, I want to talk about the failure of politicians to tackle the dangers of gender extremism. The cowardly institutions that have enabled the entitled behavior of spoilt brats like the ones we saw in Brighton last week, who don't seem to understand the word no. No. It's a complete sentence. Yes. But first up, I want to shout out to Kellie-Jay. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. We appreciate it. We really do. We know that it takes a huge sacrifice every month to put an event on this like this so that every woman here can have a chance to speak her voice and speak her truth. Don't let anyone else define your narrative. The story is yours. Okay. I also want to say a huge, huge shout out to Maya Forstater and Helen Joyce for coming out last week. Thank you. And the reason why I say thank you is because I saw how much your presence buoyed the presence of other women who came. They loved it. When I saw Maya at the train station, I was like, oh, yay! And so did so many other women. Seeing women stand together in solidarity was amazing. It was amazing for those of us who came, for those of us who are watching online. And so despite shit that you've taken online, we appreciate what you did in taking a stand. Thank you so much, wherever you are. I also want to shout out to Aja, and Tavisaurus, and all the lesbians who took a lot of shit in Leeds the day before, but still came and held the line for us in Brighton the next day. And also I want to salute Kara Bell, because her story was also one of the reasons why I got into this. Speak up. So, my first experience of this actually was when I was handed a Fair Play for Women flyer about the consultation on GRA reform. And I filled it out and I forgot about it because I thought our politicians would know what to do, right? They like, come on, this is bullshit. Everyone knows that a guy is not a woman. So I thought, that's the end of it. End of the story, filled out the consultation, bye. And then, I don't know, I think maybe it was about a year later or something, I saw Kellie-Jay Keen on Sky News arguing with Adrian Harrop. Yeah. It's like, wait. What is this all about? Wait, why is this woman getting so much flack? And also I realized they hated each other. I was like, oh, okay, well. Or if they didn't hate, they were really blunt with each other. And I just thought, wait, this woman's getting a lot of flack because she had a billboard that says adult human female. Wait, that's not an issue. Why is that an issue? And then I think I must have seen her on TV arguing with India Willoughby. And I was seeing, was it, what's his name, Eamon Holmes or whatever his name was, and he was trying to kind of tone police Kelly, and she wasn't having any of it. And she's like, no. And he had to kind of back down. And I thought it was great because I rarely see women be so direct. So for me, it was very interesting to see. Now, the next thing that was to pique trans me was Maya's case. Because when I found out that she'd lost her job for basically stating material reality, I thought, this is insane. And then the final thing was JKR. In 2020, just saying, menstruator is a disrespectful term to use for a woman. And the amount of shit that she got for that, and going to read her essay, because I like to think of things for myself and think through things, and I read through her essay and I could not find anything wrong with what she had said. And so at that point, a TERF was born. Or maybe I was always a TERF. I just didn't know there was a network of wonderful women like you guys out there, feeling the same and fighting immense battles at great personal cost to ensure women, a long marginalized and oppressed single-sex class, who've been treated as male chattel, are fighting so hard to retain our sex-based rights and recognition as adult human females in language, in law, and in policy. Our politicians have failed us. Cowed by these militant TRA activists, they have allowed young lesbians to have healthy tits chopped off. They've allowed women like Maria McLachlan to be punched in the face for no reason. They've allowed women like Kate Scotto and Maya to be tortured through the court process and fight for due process. This is not fair. This is not female equality. We say we are equality, that's not female equality. They watch silently as women like Fiona, the Salisbury soap lady, is ostracized and prevented from selling her fantastic soaps at her local fair because she knows the difference between a man and a woman. And that lesbians do not include biological males. Our politicians look silently on as hundreds of Kira Bells go through the Tavistock and try to cement in law through backdoor routes more ways that strip women of our rights, our dignity, and our safety. Just look at what's happened in Primark yesterday. So my message now is for Liz Truss. An adult human female who says she understands the importance and ramifications of being born with a female body in a male-dominated world. There is a trans conversion therapy bill that needs to be stopped. Stop it. If you approve it, then you are actually practicing conversion therapy, but you are converting bodies instead of minds. In Scotland, there's a new GRC. that allows any man who declares he's a woman to become a woman. But it's so weird, you're going to have a man in Scotland but a woman in England, and vice versa. Liz Truss, you have the power to stop that. Make sure that that new GRC is not recognised in England and Wales. The EHRC have written guidance. Liz Truss, it's up to you to ensure that that new guidance, which recognises that women are entitled to single-sex spaces, ensure that becomes statutory code. Women will judge you by your deeds and not your words. And for Labour, you have failed women. Shame on you. Barbara Castle will be rolling in her grave. The party that introduced the Equality Act but won't stand up for female equality. Women, reject your measly attempts at compromising our hard-won right for male comfort. Lastly, I want to address the head girls. You have done so much work for our TRA friends this week. Thank you. My black African son of color. And then you can reflect on your behavior towards Maya, a woman who's been tortured through the court process so that we could ensure that our rights are upheld in law. I have been disgusted by the behavior I have seen this week online. For a woman who haven't gone through a half of what that woman has gone through, and to treat her so appallingly, it's disgusting. If you want to have a discussion, let's have a discussion. But don't give armor to people who want to label us as when you know we're not fascists, because you do not like this woman standing over here. And for ordinary women, you are all very much valued. Your pound shop activism is so important. We have just under 700 days to the next election. So while certain feminists are working on Keir Starmer, Labour, the unions, and Brighton single-sex female services with varying degrees of success, us ordinary women are going to get out there and change hearts and minds. We are winning. The travel stock is closing, the public is getting on board, and there are so many things you can do to raise awareness and stop the erosion of female rights and the sterilization of gay children. You can write letters, you can write submissions to consultations, you can email members of the Lords, you can talk to school teachers. Talking under this tree can make more women realize you can make a difference. You are making a difference, and don't let anyone tell you differently. Thank you.
Oh yes, yes. Sorry. Okay, nice and loud. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Posey, first of all, for giving me a platform to speak today, and thank you for all listening, because it's a very rare feeling as a woman to feel listened to.
Really loud.
Okay.
You guys are really loud. I think the TRA's put them there.
Okay, I would like to approach this debate through a slightly different perspective. As a literature teacher with 3 postgraduate degrees in gender, I would like to present you with a very brief literary analysis of the work of Angela Carter. Angela Carter and myself have a few things in common. We are both English, we are both women, and we both studied English literature at university. We also both lived in Japan, and we both identify as feminists. Carter claimed that it was her time in Japan that radicalised her as a feminist. Well, I was already pretty radical before I went, but Angela, me too. I wish to highlight these similarities for a reason, because I believe they aid me in my understanding of her work. I want to talk to you about Carter's novel, The Passion of the New Eve. Carter's novel has been claimed to echo Judith Butler's Gender Trouble, modern day gender ideology as we know it, a reading that I profoundly disagree with. The Passion of the New Eve follows the story of its narrator, the undeniably misogynistic Evelyn. The opening chapters tells us of the chauvinistic escapades of the young English gentleman, then, following his capture by a group of women in the desert, his forced transition into a transsexual woman, and the taste of his own misogyny he is subjected to as a result. Upon being transformed into a woman, Evelyn, who is now Eve, claims, and I quote, I was the object of all unfocused desires that had ever existed in my own head. I had become my own masturbatory fantasy, and, how could I put it, the cock in my head still twitched at the sight of myself. A reference to autogynephilia by Carter, I'm sure you'll agree. But the character I wish to bring to your attention today is that of Tiris Tessa. Tiris Tessa is a beautiful and beloved movie star, erotic, divine and oozing with sensual feminine sorrow. She has, and I quote, nothing whatsoever in common with the girl next door. This, we find out at the end of the novel, is because Tiris Tessa is actually anatomically male. Upon discovering the well-kept secret of his teenage crush, Evelyn declares, and I quote, that was why he had been the perfect man's woman. He had made himself a shrine of his own desires, had made himself the only woman he could ever love. The ideal woman, then, was a man. The very incarnation of the pornified, capitalised and commodified associations of femaleness. In essence, woman as constructed by patriarchy. I therefore disagree with the reading that Carter's work is a proto-text to modern-day transgender ideology. In fact, I believe she's doing the opposite in the exploration of the misogynistic discourses that surround her transgender characters. In conclusion, I propose we should all read what is really there as opposed to what we want to be there, whether that be a man, a woman or a book. My motivation for this very brief speech today goes beyond my interest in literature or pure philosophical pursuit, and I believe they're encompassed in the following quote, which I'm sure you'll recognise. First, they came for the socialists, but I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then, they came for the trade unionists, but I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then, they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me. There was no one left to speak for me. I'm a feminist, I'm a philosopher, and I'm a bitch. I came here today to call out this trans ideological bullshit because lesbians don't suck dick. Twinkle, twinkle, my Japanese stars, I know exactly what you are. And what else am I? I am a woman, adult, human, female. I am a woman who has suffered at the hands of abusive men. I've been undermined, belittled, hit, tormented, assaulted, harassed. I've had PTSD and I've been raped. And it was not until I understood the language of patriarchy that I could articulate my pain. Adult, human, female. My oppression is sex-based, and my language will not be erased. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, sorry, everyone forgets. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up because it's quite cold. And I will announce the pub as soon as I've switched off the live stream. So, what a week. What a funny old week. I think we should all be really proud of ourselves. I want to extend a really massive thank you to Iris. And all of you women here who were stewards. I've heard some ontological arguments about some women who apparently have been on the front line for 10 years, but these women actually literally were right on the front line of male violence and intimidation, and they kept the rest of us pretty safe. So thank you very much to them. Look, and on that note, all of you that are here that wore a very bright yellow vest, come and see me for a drink. Okay, so if you can stand with courage, even when those who profess to speak for you tell you that you are wrong, then I promise we will win. If you can rise above it and continue to uplift women, even those that seek to demonize you, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Because